What is up, Wizards? My name is Mooner, and this is Waning Moon Gaming, and today I am bringing you guys a learn how to play the Kano Pre-Con, History Pack 1 Pre-Con Blitz starter deck. Now, what prompted me to do this was, I went to an armory last week where the rules of the armory were everybody had to buy a pre-constructed Blitz deck, and we had to play those Blitz decks unmodified against each other. And I chose, obviously, to play Kano, and I went undefeated for 4 rounds, which was really, really cool. It surprised me. I didn't really, initially respect how powerful this deck was, but also how difficult it might be, especially to a new player who's unfamiliar with Kano and how he operates and how he works. And maybe that's you. Maybe you have just gotten into the game and you're really intrigued by Wizard and you wanted to pick up this Kano Blitz deck. Well, first of all, there's 2 things. One, I made a video a little while ago on how to upgrade this Blitz deck. So if this is something that you are really into and you learn and this really resonates with you, I made a video on how to upgrade this deck for about $30. And then, fully optimize it for about another $80. Anyways, I go over in that video every card in the deck and my thoughts and opinions on it. So I'm assuming that maybe you have a little bit of familiarity with Kano and some of his cards. So I'm not going to go over every single card in this deck right now, but we'll go over them as we draw into them. And what we're going to do is we are going to go through like a mock game. I'm going to go through a mock game and show you guys how I play this deck. But before I do that, let's just straight from the beginning go over what Kano does and the equipment that this comes with. So this is an unmodified, pre-constructed History Pack 1 Blitz deck. Everything that is in it is everything that we are playing. So Kano is a wizard hero young, and he has 4 intellect and 15 health. Now that's substantially lower, about 25% lower than almost every other hero in the game at the Blitz level. And part of that reason is because of his hero ability. And his hero ability is an instant, and it reads, pay 3 resources, look at the top card of your deck. If it's a non-attack action card, you may banish it. If you do, you may play it this turn as though it were an instant. Now, because this is an instant, you can activate this ability anytime you have priority. That means on your turn or your opponent's turn. And a lot of Kano players consider our opponent's turn our turn, but we'll get into that later. Anyways, you pay 3 resources, or otherwise you pitch a blue. You take a peek at the top card of your deck. If you like what it is, you get to banish it and then play it at instant speed. It's still considered an action, but it's played at instant speed. Now, this hero ability does not use your action point. Every time. So every turn, we start our turn with 1 action point. And using his hero ability does not consume that action point. And playing cards at instant speed does not consume that action point. But playing cards from hand would. So every card in this deck is a non-attack action card. Spoiler, there are no attack actions in this deck. That is not how we are going to defeat our opponent. We are not going to defeat them by attacking them with attack actions like Brutal Assault or Command and Conquer or Erase Face or something like that. Instead, we are going to use our magical spells of arcane damage to defeat our opponent. And that's why we have this weapon called Crucible of Aetherweave. And it reads, once per turn instant, pay 1 resource. The next card you play this turn with an arcane damage dealing effect instead deals that much damage plus 1. So what that essentially means is, because it's an instant, you can use this on your turn or your opponent's turn as long as you have priority. There is always that caveat, you must have priority. And you can buff up the next spell that you play. Let's say it's coming in for 4 arcane. Well, then by Crucible of Aetherweaving it now comes in for 5, which is a big deal. Making his spells bigger is really strong. And even this weapon is even one that is played in the most optimized, fully tuned competitive decks. So it is a really, really, really good and powerful weapon, and there's a reason that we play it. Now, getting into the rest of the equipment that this deck comes with, it comes with these 4 4 pieces and these 4 pieces alone. It comes with Talismanic Lens, Null Rune Gloves, Robe of Rapture, and Mage of Master Boots. And I'm going to go over all of those. Starting with Null Rune Gloves, because Null Rune Gloves only has a very simple ability of Arcane Barrier 1. Now that is not really necessarily needed in almost every other matchup except for Rune Blades like Viserai or Briar and other wizards like Icelander or Kano. So it's pretty much only there just to deal with other wizards. And unfortunately they didn't give us an additional arm piece, so it's the one we have to wear. The next thing we have is that I want to talk about is Talismanic Lens. Now, Talismanic Lens is an incredibly powerful headpiece, and it reads instant, destroy Talismanic Lens, opt 2. So you can use this, like I said, at instant speed as long as you have priority, and you can opt 2. Opting means you get to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and if you like them or dislike them, either or, you can rearrange them in any order and you can put them either on top or bottom of your deck. You can put one on top and one on bottom. So since I already peeked at these cards, let's just say I'm going to put them on the bottom of my deck because I did not like them. Now, that would destroy your Talismanic Lens and you move on. The next thing we have is Robe of Rapture, and this is action. Destroy Robe of Rapture and gain 3 resources. And this also comes with Arcane Barrier 1, if that's relevant. But the action destroy this Robe of Rapture and gain 3 resources. This is an action, so it will eat your action point, and it does not have go again. So these 3 free resources can only be used in this deck to pay for Kano's ability, because it is an instant, or to pay for Crucible of Aetherweave. But generally speaking, what you want to do is you want to break your Robe of Rapture after maybe you have defended a lot and don't have the resources to activate Kano. And because it's an action, it can only be done on your turn, and it will eat your action point. Remember that. It will take your action point away, so unless you have another way to gain an action point, you cannot play anything from hand. You can only use those resources to activate Kano's ability. And the last piece of equipment we have is Mage Master Boots. And this reads, action, pay 1 resource, destroy Mage Master Boots, and the next non-attack action card you play this turn gains go again. And Mage Master Boots itself has go again. So by using this, it does not consume your action point. You do gain go again. But what you want to do essentially is pay a resource, and this is a good way to play 2 spells from your hand instead of off the top of your deck with Kano's ability. Now, one piece of advice I will give you, Kano 101, the very first rule is only use Kano's ability on your own turn, or, this is a big or if you are able to kill your opponent and you know exactly what is on top of your deck. Now, when would you know exactly what is on top of your deck? There are a couple ways, but one of the main ones is Talismanic Lens. So, let's get into how a general play patterns and game would go with Kano. So I've represented these dice up here to represent our opponent's life total at 20, and these down here represent our life total at 15. So what we're going to try to do is get our opponent's life total down to 0 before ours goes down to 0, and obviously they start at 5 more health, and we don't have any defensive armor, so we have to use our might and our minds. We have to use our minds and our spells in order to do that. So let's just say that our opponent has they won the die roll and they get to go first. So we're going to draw into our first hand here. And one of the first things you want to do with every hand is make sure that you have resources. Because Kano's ability costs 3 resources, because Crucible of Aetherweave costs a resource, and because your spells cost resource, blues are very, very important, and they're a high priority. Now, after this first turn, we do get to draw back into our full hand size, our full intellect, so we can block out anything. But let's just see what we have. We have an Aether Flare, we have a Voltic Bolt blue, a Zap red, and a red Aether Spindle. Now these are all really, really powerful spells and ones that I would love to keep, but unfortunately we have to block a little bit, and we only have 1 blue. So, knowing that half of the deck is blue and we did just draw into 3 reds, we can probably safely assume that we'll draw into some more blues at the end of this turn. But let's just say that our opponent is attacking us for just a straight 6. So here they are attacking us for 6 damage. It's just any old attack coming in for 6. And we have to block that out. So one of the things I want to do is I want to really keep this Aether Flare, and I want to keep this blue. So I'm just going to block this 6 attack with these 2 cards here. One of the good things about all of Kano's cards is because all of Kano's wizard actions, they all do block for 3. Almost every single thing in this deck, barring potions, blocks for 3. So we can very easily cover that attack up with just these 2 spells here. The block value is right down there, and we'll block them. They will go to the graveyard. We will take no damage. This attack will resolve, and then after that, we're going to go over to our turn. So we are going to draw back up to our full hand size and go into our turn. Now, first thing we want to do is we want to count up our resources. We have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 2 reds, a blue, and a yellow in hand. Now, using Kano's ability will not eat up our action point, but playing a card from hand will eat our action point. So, we don't really have enough resources to be able to just Kano off the top wildly, as I like to say it, just like YOLO Kano and everything. But this Aether Flare is a really good spell to start with, and it could potentially lead to some extra damage. So why don't we do this? Why don't we first break our Mage Master boots by paying 1 resource? Okay? That's going to leave us with 2 resources left. And then we are going to activate our Crucible of Aetherweave, which is going to cost us, another resource. And now the next spell we play gains Go Again because of Mage Master Boots. And we're going to use that last resource to play Aether Flare. Now, Aether Flare reads, deal 3 arcane damage to target opposing hero. The next card you play this turn with an arcane damage dealing effect instead deals that much damage plus X, where X is the damage dealt by Aether Flare. So, our opponent, we got lucky. They only have Arcane Barrier 2. So, this spell is coming in for 4 damage. It is coming in for the 3 off the Aether Flare and the 1 boosted up from Crucible of Aetherweave. And we have an extra action point thanks to Mage Master Boots, so we can play another spell from hand. Alright, and our opponent can only block 2 of that damage because they only have Arcane Barrier 2, like I said. So they end up taking 2 damage from this Aether Flare. And let's take them down. 2 damage there. They are now at 18 life. And because we played Mage Master Boots, we get to play an additional spell from hand. So I want to play this Zap, and this Zap is free. So we're going to play that. Now this Zap normally comes in for 3, but because it's going to get the extra buff from Aether Flare, it's now going to come in for 5. It's going to get +2 from Aether Flare. So now we are dealing them 5 damage, and we didn't have to pay for that because Zap is free. So our opponent can only block 2 of those damage, so they pitch a little bit more, they block 2, and they end up taking 3, so now they are down to 15 life. Alright, not a bad turn, not a bad turn at all. These go to our graveyard, and we are left with 1 card left in our hand, so we're going to put that in our arsenal right here. And this is Kano's life, and this is our arsenal. Crucible of Aetherweave resolves. Mage Master Boots, we've used that, so that'll go away there. And since our opponent had to block a little bit of that, they only were able to keep 2 cards. This card goes back on the bottom of our deck because we pitched it for resources. It's the end of our turn. We draw back up to our hand size, which is 4. And the first thing we want to do is count up our resources. I'm sorry, there's a lawnmower outside. I really hope you guys can't hear that. But we have 3, 4, 5, 6 resources. So we don't have a whole lot of resources here. and we won't be able to activate Kano's ability and with any we won't be able to activate Kano's ability because we only have 3 resources and anything, and we need to preserve our own life total. So our opponent was left with 2 cards in hand, and they decide to use those 2 cards to attack us for another 6 damage. Okay, they pitch a card and they are attacking us for 6 damage. This is a Command and Conquer coming in, and it is threatening our arsenal. So what do we want to do? We want to block that. So I want to keep this blue card because I want to keep it for resources, and I really want to play this Aether Spindle or this Voltic Bolt because these are some pretty high damage dealing spells. So let's say that we decide to keep the Voltic Bolt, so we're going to block with the Aether Spindle and the Aether Flare. So just like that, because all Kano's cards do block for 3, and they're not threatening pummel or anything because they had to use up cards in their last turn, we're going to block this 6 with 2 cards there. And that's the end of our opponent's turn. We have still taken no damage, and they are at 15. Now we go back into our turn, and we have 2 cards left in hand. So we are going to pitch one of them to activate our Crucible of Aetherweave, and we're going to have 2 resources left floating. And we're going to play this Voltic Bolt. And this, because of Crucible, is going to come in for a nice fat 6. And our opponent only has Arcane Barrier 2, remember, so we used up those 2 resources. So they have to take at least 4 of this damage. But they want to hold their whole hand this turn because they want to volley back a really nasty attack. So they're going to take all 6 of this damage. So they're going to take 5 there, and they're going to take that, and they're going to go down to 9. Now our opponent is at 9, and we are still at 15. And they really want to try to turn the tempo back into their favor because we haven't taken any damage. So this resolves the end of our turn. This goes to the bottom of our graveyard. And we're going to draw into our next hand. And our opponent still has all of their cards, so this is scary. So we've drawn into, let's count up our resources, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have a Timekeeper's Whim, which costs 3. We have a Scalding Rain, which costs 1. We have a Reverberate and a Whisper of the Oracle. Now let's say that our opponent is attacking us for something really big. This is a Guardian we're playing against. We're playing against Bravo, and they are attacking us with a Choke Slam, or even better, they're attacking us with a Spinal Crush. So this is coming in for a nice fat 9. All right? And they have enough resources that they are threatening pummel. They have 2 resources left floating and something left in their graveyard, so they are threatening pummel. So what do we want to do here? Do they have the pummel? Do they not? I don't know. We might lose our arsenal anyways. So let's just say we have to cover up 9 damage, because if they pummel us, that'll be 13 damage, and that'll take us down to 2, which is a very, very dangerous life total to be at. But our opponent is only at 9. So they are not technically in kill range yet. So let's say that we decide to block with this card and this card. We'll block 6. And thank God they don't have the pummel, but we're going to keep these 2 blue cards left in our hand. They don't have the pummel, but we end up taking 3 damage from that. And, math. And we go down to 12. And we go back into our turn. So we know that we have a yellow zap in Arsenal, which we can use for our action point. But we also have quite a few resources. So let's see what we have on the top with Kano. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this Robe of Rapture, because we don't have any spells significant enough to play it to use our action point. And we're going to gain 3 resources, which I will represent here as a 3, because this doesn't technically have a 3 on it. And we're going to use those 3 resources automatically to just take a peek at the top of our deck, and it is a pry. It's not really what we wanted to see, but what we can do is play it anyways because it costs 0, and this says target hero reveals a card from their hand. If pry is played on their opponent's turn, instead they reveal all cards in their hand. You may choose a card revealed this way. If you do, they put it on the bottom of their deck and then draw the card. Now I personally think this card is questionable in the deck, but anyways, we're playing it anyways, and they do the thing. Pry resolves, it happens. But we still have 2 more cards in our hand. So let's pitch another card to activate Kano's ability. And there we go. We have a yellow Voltic Bolt. So we are going to choose to banish this. And we are going to activate our Crucible of Aetherweave, giving us 2 resources left. And then play this yellow Voltic Bolt, paying those 2 resources. And this is going to come in for 5. Now remember, our opponent only has 8 Arcane Barrier 2, and they are at a low life total. So they need to start respecting our arcane damage. So they are going to pitch into this, and they're going to take 3 of this damage. So they're going to go down to 6. And they have pitched a blue to do so, and they are left with 3 cards in their hand. So all of this resolves. This goes to the graveyard. And they realize that it's time that they start putting on some real pressure. So this time they decide to attack us for another 6. But this time it is threatening the pummel, which they do have. It's a command and conquer, and it's going to come in, and we're not going to block any of this. So we are going to end up taking 10 damage here and losing our arsenal, which is unfortunate. So we're just going to take that damage, but we have kept all cards in our hand here. So we are at 2 life. Goes back to our turn. We've taken that damage. We've lost our arsenal, but they are at 6. So can we kill them on our turn? Probably. And here's how we're going to do that. We're going to pitch 2 Crucible of Aetherweave, and then we're going to play Reverberate, and that's going to cost us 1 additional resource. Now Reverberate is going to come in for 4, and it says, if Reverberate deals damage, you may banish a wizard non-attack action card from your hand with cost less to or equal to the damage dealt by Reverberate. If you do, you may play it this turn as though it were an instant. Okay? So our opponent only has Arcane Barrier 2, and they are going to take 2 of that damage. So we can look at our hand and see if anything costs 2 or less and play it, banish it, and play it this turn as though it were an instant. And we have a Voltic Bolt and we have a Scalding Rain. Voltic Bolt costs 2, Scalding Rain costs 1. So we are going to do that. First of all, they are going to take that 2 damage and they're going to go down to 4 life. Alright? Now we get to play this Voltic Bolt from our hand at instant speed. And this is coming in for 4 more damage. We have to pay for it, and we are left with 2 resources left floating, which is fine, but now they have to start respecting this and blocking this, so they have to block 2 of this, taking them down to 2. So they end up taking 2 from there, and we'll pass our turn. We will end our turn there, and our opponent is now left at 2 life, and they only have 2 cards left in hand. So what are they going to do? They are going to try to kill us. We are both at 2. They're going to attack us for another 6. This is another Command and Conquer coming in. And we have, let's see, we need to count up our resources. We have an Emeritus Scalding, a Whispers, a Scalding Rain, and another Emeritus Scalding, all blues. So that's pretty good. So the way the priority works is our opponent is attacking us. And after they have declared their attack, before we declare blocks, we get priority, which means we can activate our instant shenanigans. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to hold priority, and we are going to activate our Talismanic Lens. There. So we're going to opt 2. And look at that. We see a Voltic Bolt and a Zap on top. So we're going to leave those on top just like that. And then we are going to hold that priority. We're going to activate Crucible of Aetherweave. We're going to have 2 resources floating. And then we are going to activate Kano and have 2 resources floating. We're going to banish that Voltic Bolt that we just saw on top, and we're going to use those 2 resources, pay for Voltic Bolt, which is going to come in for 6. Our opponent is at 2. They only have Arcane Barrier 2, so they take 4 damage and go to -2. Our opponent dies. In mid-attack, So while they are threatening us with their own attack, we get to use the priority that is before their attack resolves. Our arcane damage will resolve first, and they are unfortunately taking 4 of that 6 arcane damage, going to -2, and they die. And we still have 2 cards remaining, so we could just YOLO it and banish another zap, give them some more damage, and oh, look at that, play the potion of deja vu. Anyways, I hope that helped, guys, learning how to play this deck a little bit. We did use up all of our equipment, which is something I wanted to do, and we were able to defeat Bravo from 20 life while starting at 15. So the deck works. It is very, very powerful, and like I said, only activate Kano's ability when you know exactly what's on top of the deck on your opponent's turn, or it's your turn and you have plenty of resources to do so, because it is very expensive. Anyways, guys, check out that other video on how to upgrade this deck, and check out some of my gameplay videos. I have plenty of Kano Blitz gameplay videos in the channel. Just go check out some of them, see how the fully optimized decks work, with like things like Storm Striders and Ragamuffin's Hat and Tunic and Spellfire Cloak and things like that. Anyways, I hope that really helped, guys. Thanks for watching, and please like, comment, subscribe. I do tons and tons and tons of Wizard content. This is a strictly Wizard channel, so if you want to learn Wizard, you're in the right place. And peace out, Wizards.